All right, so I guess maybe I'll just start, and maybe we can just type in some questions to begin with, and then go from, like, if I need to fast forward anything that I'm doing, we can just do that. So I'm just gonna randomly set a tempo. All right, and let me unmute this guy. You should hear the click now. All right, so let's just randomly see if we can record, figure out what to record, and I'm just going to do from this same spot. I'm on this channel here. All right, freestyle time. All right, here we go. Hey, so here we go. We're going to do this again, and then we're going to stop. All right, so I'm saving that. Something else is recording that I don't want recording. And all right, here we go. So let's see what this sounded like, if we can hear it. Hey, so here we go. We're going to do this again, and then we're going to stop. All right, so I'm going to pretend that this is what I meant to record. And so basically the first thing, all right, and I'll keep the chat up just in case. So the first thing basically is, by default, anything that you record over the track is just going to go on a new take on the same track. So you just start that again. Hey, we're going to start right now, going to do it, and then we're going to stop. All right, so I could keep going through like that and just doing these takes. I have the first one. This is like the super basic version. I go back and click each of these, and the hey, so here we go. We're gonna do this again, and then as soon as I click the other one, it's gonna switch. We're gonna start right now. Gonna do it, and then we're gonna stop. So basically, anything that you do on here, if you slice a certain part, then you can jump over to wherever you want. So for me, the shortcut that I used, if you hit the shift and question mark key and bring up the actions, I want to say I did split mouse, and I just put that on letter C. So every time I press letter C, it's just going to do a split under the mouse, wherever that is. So hopefully this works like I think it's going to. You can always just click it and also just press S to do the split. But let's see what happens. Yeah, so I just hit C under my mouse, and I could do this as many times as I want to. And it just makes it really fast. It's just a personal thing. So then you just click the other one, and there you go. So it's going to play this one and play the other one. Hey, so here we go. We're going to do this again, and then we're going to stop. Yeah, so that's the first one. And let's say I like the hey from the first take. Hey, I like the hey, the other hey. Hey, so here we go. We're going to do this again, and then we're going to stop. All right, I'm assuming that's kind of quiet. Let me take a look at that and see. Hey. So yeah, it's probably a little. Hey. So here we go. We're going to do this again, and then we're going to stop. Not bad. I'm going to right click and drag and do Control Shift N and just normalize. So you see, this interesting thing is I did that normalize, and it normalized whatever I had selected across both the comps, rather than doing every single thing in there. So just keep that in mind. You can right click and go to this processing, And I think because it's only selecting that one, again, it's only going to do that, which is actually pretty useful if you want to adjust different things for each part. Hey, whoa. So here we go. We're going to do this again, and then we're going to stop. Hey, all right. So the only thing to add to that, so that's the basics of it. Actually, the cool part is, as long as you, on your slice, your mouse becomes these two arrows, and you can actually select. Actually, I didn't know it was going to do that, because you notice when I did this, it slid both edges, this edge as well as this edge over here. Let me kill this guy real quick. As well as this edge, which is kind of cool. And it's going to keep all the information for all it takes. So if nothing else is selected, I can just do this and move over maybe to here and be good for that. And you notice that this is still normalized over here, which is also interesting. Hey, we're going to do this again, and then we're going to stop. Yeah, so, and move this back. Hey, so here we go. We're going to do this. All right, so the only thing to add to that would be like a loop recording. Let me see let me check the chat. Chat's looking a little dry. Chat's looking dry. No worries. Let's bring up the face. So so back here, so I was going to say the only thing to add to that would be like a loop recording. So if I turn the snapping on, and you can do Alt S to turn that. Whoops, that was Alt D. Turn Alt S to turn that on and off. I turn that on, and I'm just going to go to my spots, and it's basically just gonna keep going back and forth here. I've got this extra beat here, so it's a little weird, but I can just keep recording over this track. All right, so wondering about the workflow when you're editing two vocals at the same time. Top editing both of them. Okay, so like dual tracks. I don't know how live this live chat is. Is the chat delayed as well? I have no idea. All right, so for printing the mix back into Reaper, just put this guy over here for a second. Does Reaper have a layers function, meaning you can display a particular layer? So basically, here's how this works roughly. Let me just go ahead and do a couple more, just to bring this home a little bit. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to loop record this by toggling the repeat. I'm going to right click this record button over here, and oh no, I shouldn't have to change it. I could have done the punch, but I'm just going to record here. So let's just see what happens. Hey, we're going to do it, going to start again, and then we're going to stop. Hey, we're going to do it, starting again, and probably stop. Hey, we're going to do it and do it again, and then we're going to stop. Hey, what's happening? Do it again, and stop. All right, so I'm going to save, and you notice when I hit this save, it only shows one. When you're doing loop recording, there's probably a setting. You can like change every setting in here, but once I do that, it's only showing me the last one. I think it automatically saved the other ones. Once it looped around, it just saved it. So I'm hitting save. Now I have all these guys here, and I'm going to see if I can, I'm going to see if I can normalize all of these. So let's see what happens there. So Control Shift in, and I'm not sure if there's an easier way to do that, but just clicking all these guys. All right, so trying to get to this question real quick. Yeah. Trying to get to this question real quick. As far as if I understand correctly, instead of both takes on one lane, yeah. So the layer basically is when you reduce the size of this, it's going to show you one. It's going to show you one, and then you can basically you basically see up here, this is take 2 of 7, this is take 3 of 7, back to take 2 of 7. If I open this back up and move here, see what this sounds like. Hey, we're going to do it. Starting again, and then we're going to stop. And hey, we're going to do it. Starting again, and then we're going to stop. So if I minimize this back down, once it gets to a certain point, it's going to auto do that. There's probably an option that will let you just make it have this display all the time, but I've never used that. So I think the only other possible part of the question would be, is there a way to just move these onto different tracks? Yeah, so I'm gonna come back to that. So let's just do that real quick. So on this, if I have this selected, there's a couple ways to go about this. So I could say, all right, I have this track. I'm just gonna freeze this section basically, and once I'm happy with the comp, I'm just gonna leave this on a new thing. So I right-click the track, go to render freeze, and then say render to mono stems and mute originals. And you can do this multi-channel thing too. But when I do that, now it has me as a stem, and now it's got this. Hey, we're gonna this comped version again, and then we're gonna stop. All right, so that's fine. I can go back and unmute this guy and mute the new one. So the other one is you can do. Yeah, so if I right click this and go to take and go down to explode all takes to new tracks, I can technically separate all of them if I want to work with them individually. All right, so this now showed up right here. And now I can work with them as individual. And the only time I used this was recording a bunch of like overdub, like chorus, like a stack. And I wanted them to actually play together instead of just choosing one for each thing. So, so now all of these guys will play at the same time. This is going to sound awesome. Hey! Oh my gosh. I'm going to turn all the volumes down. And of course, in Reaper, anything that you have selected, it's going to group together whatever you did. So I'm just raising the volume, and it's doing that for all of them. So, hey, so we're going to do it. Starting again, and then we're going to stop. That's ridiculous. I also had this button to do a high pass, which is kind of interesting, and then it just automatically puts in all of them, and I can, and I can adjust it later. But that's another feature. So let me see. Did anybody say anything? Let me see. Did that answer? All right. So, All right, so I guess until I hear back, let's try the other version of it and see how we would go about. I guess maybe a multi-track thing would be kind of the next thing to do, because basically it works the same way, but you just have to group the tracks together first. And actually, now I'm trying to remember if there's a direct way. Yeah, next take, previous take. So you have these buttons you can use to just kind of cycle through the different takes. So I do next, and then it moved up to take 4, and I do previous, Shift T. So T and Shift T is just an easy way to kind of cycle through the takes on the different parts. So if you just wanted to loop it around, you could just, instead of clicking around, you can kind of just cycle through and see what you like. And you notice this changes up here. And again, I'm assuming that's kind of a Pro Tools reference as far as the layers thing, but just go from there. Yeah, so in Studio One, there's a button where you can add a layer, and each layer can hold takes. Yeah, Pro Tools playlist. Yeah, so I think they kind of like consolidated that. Yeah, I think they consolidated that as far as my knowledge goes. So if you wanted to do anything besides that, you can just add to a new, basically add to a new track, or I might duplicate the track if I want to, have the same track settings and just do a whole new set of comp recording or anything like that. Yeah, so that's pretty much that. All right, so I'm trying to think of the best way to, if the drum set was set up, then I would do a multi-track that way. All right, I'm turning me off for a second. Hey, Alex, you still? Oh, oh my gosh. All right, so was there something next on the?
I was curious because remember when you were doing the recording for with Gwen. You had 2 takes, one mic and then another mic. So you had like the S25 and you had the C12, and then you comp edited both at the same time.
Yes. Okay. Let's do that. So that's I was gonna try to show that with the drums, but I can probably just get another microphone and just pull that up real quick and try to do it that way. So yeah, it's just a grouping. So hold on one second. All right, so I'm gonna pull in another mic and figure out best way to do like a dual comp.
I don't know, it's a kind of specific use case, but if you were trying to like batch edit, I don't know, like overheads or toms or something, know that there's nothing gonna be there or something. That workflow, and then fast tips for like adding fades and cutting out regions that you don't want and that kind of stuff may be useful.
Okay. Well, let me see what happens if I attempt to go to the drums, even though they're not all there. All right, so I'm just gonna arm these guys. It should be there, and let me just find something to do real quick, and maybe we can just go to a new part of this. And yeah, this is going to be real dirty, but let's see what happens. All right, so I'm just going to set this loop here, and I'm going to start this and just run over and try to play something and see what happens. I can actually do this from a phone / tablet and like trigger the recording, which is another nice thing. Yeah. All right, so let me put this back up for a second. All right, so basically I went to the settings, and this is like not on topic, but it's kind of useful. And here over in the settings, there's this, at the very bottom, there's this Control OSC, and you go and you add a web browser interface. It gives you an IP address that's connected to your thing, and you basically get this, depending on which one you set up, you basically get this here, which allows you to start and stop and run back and etc. etc. Oh, and you can't even hear this in here, but I'm hitting play, and that thing is also going to give you a representation of the metronome and what measure on, if you had spots in there that you set up. You can do that as well. So go back to the beginning. And it's convenient because it's outside of the keyboard and anything else. And for me, right this second, it's only useful because I'm trying to play something. Hey, so we're gonna do it. Gonna start again. When I have my other window in focus, I can like still control this, start and stop this from here without having to worry about it. We're gonna do it. What I'm gonna do is just go over and set up this, and then we're gonna stop these drum tracks and on here, and that way when I hit record, I'll be able to at least get a feel for the metronome and start recording at the time that I want. So here we go. See what happens. All right. All right, so the other quick thing on that is it didn't bring up that screen to save those, so you don't really have that. It's just going to save automatically when you stop and start from the phone interface thing. Phone web, whatever. All right, I probably could have unmuted those so you could hear it, but all right. So let's see what we have. So basically now, so I've got 8 tracks, 10 tracks, whatever it is, and I'm going to group these together first. And I want to say you can hit G. These are all selected. So I hit G, and now everything that's selected here is grouped. This was selected down here as well. So let me just see. Punching and quick punch. So let's see if we can get to that. All right, so so here, now that these are grouped, you should be able to see. Let me just expand these a little bit. Cool. So I should be able to, you notice now it's selecting all the takes. As soon as I click it, it's selecting them all in their respective parts. So including this guy down here. Just because they were all selected. When I press G, you can press U to ungroup them, essentially. So same thing here. I'm not sure what this is going to sound like, but all right, yeah, so basically any slice that I make here, let's say I click right here and do a slice, and that sliced all of them. If I remember correctly, my little shortcut does not slice all of them. Yeah, so I press the C, and I need to figure out how to make this do it for all of them, but it's actually just cutting individually on this part. So I'm going to undo that. All right, and then just selecting take 4 for this one, it moves to take 5. This is incredibly crude, but I guess we're gonna have to just get the picture. So any slices I make there, and the same thing, once I do this, I can export this by right-clicking and doing I can explode the takes to different tracks, which would be a ton of tracks. But I could also select all of these guys and just render once I have the group that I'm satisfied with. Say it's take 5, 4, and then 6, just for kicks. Maybe why not? Ooh, boom, boom. Once I do all that, then I can just select all of these and render freeze to mono. It's going to do a little thing, and it puts it in between. So if I did want to actually, I would have to like move, I'd have to move all of them. I think there's a way that you can kind of shortcut this. And when you have a bunch highlighted, they'll like move together as a group. But that's that. So now I have my comped version of whatever this little drum madness was. All right. So what about the quick punch situation? For the punch, I haven't used that. I haven't had to use that as much. Just in the experiences that I've had so far. Sometimes I will just hit the record. Sometimes I will hit the record keystroke just right before the artist or whoever starts, and I'll kind of just do the punch that way. But basically, you can set up, you right click any selection, and yeah, so time selection, auto punch, and auto punch selected items. So this down here is going to give you pretty much what it says. Once I have this time selection here, and that is, you see the symbol changes. Once you have that there, it's only going to record. Let me see if I can undo these guys. Don't want that. So I'm just going to highlight all these real quick and click these on, and it's going to take off all those. So maybe we can just go back to our, no, I'll just do something new. So if I have this here, this time selection is just going to automatically punch, and I could take off the loop and it would only punch that part. So let's see. Hey, what's happening? Whoa. And that is only getting that section. So, and then auto punch the items obviously would be the length of whatever the item is that you're doing. It's going to punch that, which can be really useful if you say, I want to go through and only record over a certain phrase or a certain word or something like that. Then you can just cut and split the item at the place that you want it. What's happening? What's happening? Yeah, I'm gonna take this snap off, and then I could just split this and say, hey, this selected item, auto punch that. So when I come through here and press this, hey, what's happening? And it's only gonna replace that, and then it gives it to me on another take, and it's just that part. I was a little late, but there you go. All right, so let's come back to this right quick and see how we do. All right, so yeah, I mean, as far as the real life situation, I think that's what I would use it for. Would be, okay, we're just trying to get a very specific part, and obviously you want to try to get the person to perform ahead of time, so you might have to be mindful of the parts that they can hear, because sometimes it's distracting for them to hear the original part while they're performing it. So be mindful of that. But that's really when I would use it. I would just say, hey, I want this particular length of time, and put the punch on, and just let it run, and and then that way, obviously, your files are going to be limited to a certain space.
Steven was asking about pre and post roll. Comments, but just in case it comes too fast.
Yeah, no, I think it's coming through pretty instantly, Alex. I see it. Okay. I just didn't have it up. So if we can clarify the question on pre and post, I think if I understand correctly, it's that it's going to do the punch in the spot that you have it, unless I'm understanding that the wrong way. So you guys can let me know to clarify the pre and post situation, the question, and let me jump to this other one.
Pro Tools allows you to specify, like, click in 2 measures before, and then, but
yeah, I know that there's a way to edit that setting on here, as far as how far you have the count in before you actually start recording. So you can set it up that way as well. and that's there's only varying situations where I might use that, like kind of at the beginning of a song or something like that, where that's pretty useful to have that click come in and not be there anymore. But most of the time, once we're in the middle of something, I will probably use this punch, a variation of this punch thing, to get a specific section and to kind of have it somewhat clean. And obviously, you want to watch out for, you know, if you need to give some more space, you want to make sure you have enough space if you want to catch like the breath or whatever leading part of the performance. Even though this is the actual part that you're looking for, you know, you can do it like that. So, so the other thing is, and again, you guys can clarify the question, but the regions, say example, you tab to a transient mark. Oh, tab to a transient. Can you mark it? Is it possible to then line 2 clips up using the markers? Yeah.
Essentially, like, my brother was doing an edit, right? And he was replacing some drums with trigger. So he's trying to line up the transients. And, like, in Pro Tools, you can tab the transients and then snap them together.
Mm-hmm. So, there are definitely ways to do that. And I think that, so there's a few things I can at least point to start off with. Is the marker itself, you have M and you have Shift M. So you can mark any spot. You hit M, this marker showed up at the top, you double click it, and you can edit the position on here, the ID, you can set a color, etc. And let's say let's go back to the beginning and do this. All right, so let's say I put this marker here, and Shift M will automatically take you, it'll do the marker and it'll take you to the naming. So I'll name this something. And
Actually useful. I wish I knew that. I drop markers blind all the time. I wish that you could just instantly rename them right there.
Yeah, it's pretty convenient. So Shift M, and you can do that while it's playing as well. Let me just make sure that's true. Do it. Gonna start again. Yeah, and then we're gonna stop. Yeah. So as soon as I hit that, it put that on that exact spot that I did the thing, and that also ignored the snapping that was turned on. So it's gonna put the marker wherever you put it, and then you can always adjust it. And this with the snapping on, this is gonna adjust to the snap, turn the snapping off, and this thing will do there. So just a quick thing about that is, if you double click in the timeline, it's going to automatically select this section. So I'll use this pretty often to select that, and then I will render out this selection and name it essentially, and do whatever I want. So, and then once you're here, you can drag stuff in and out. So the other thing as far as regions goes is yeah, so create region from selection. So I have this, I can double click on this, and oh, sorry. And I can put a name, right? Put the name. So the interesting thing about that is you have this like kind of song rearrangement thing that's kind of cool, where you have this, and I can just control drag this and make another one. And as long as this ripple, oh no, it just moved everything over automatically. So yeah, so you notice I can drag this around, I can duplicate this as many times as I want, and it's automatically going to push over stuff. There's different ways to adjust these settings, like almost however you could think of it, but it's pretty cool for song arranging. And I ran into a thing where it's like, okay, we got through the song, we did this, and now we want to put the bridge earlier. And I was like, okay, well, how do you do that? So you just made the markers, made the regions, and there was like an extra chorus or something. So I dragged that one chorus all the way to some random point, and then dragged this other one back to where I wanted it. So, and you can do that with pretty much anything that you can think of. So coming back. So all right. So does it do loop, but with pre-roll before that? I don't know if I'm sure it does. I haven't done that before. I think the bootleg way that I would do that is what I just did, is basically saying like, okay, I want to loop, but I want to add it here, and I would just do that. So unfortunately, I'm sure there's a way to do it. I haven't done it to be able to say this is exactly how you do that. And then once it records all those things, I would just go back, and if this part is covering up some old recording that I actually need, I would just drag this over to the spot that I want, and then it would basically reveal. Let me undo that. So you've got the double cursor, and this is going to drag, back and forward, whatever you have. I would just drag that to the spot, to the start. So I have all of my pre-roll, my bootleg pre-roll that I just kind of built into it. Let's say I want to start my punch here, and someone's looping something over and over, and then you get some pre-roll. I would just start this point somewhere back further, and just say, okay, explain, hey, this is where you're gonna roll in, and then once this records, it's gonna keep recording over. It's gonna add takes on this pre-roll part as well, and then I would just drag that part over once I'm done, so that it starts at the appropriate time, and it's not cutting off something that you previously wanted to keep. Clicking in two bars or something like that before and loop record where it's selected. Yeah, that's pretty much. Again, I would be very surprised if there's not some function where you could say, I want it to loop here and only start recording here on this spot. But I also, every time it loops, I want you to give me a pre-roll of 2 measures or something like that. I'd be surprised if that's not there, but me personally, that's the way that I would do it, just to kind of bootleg it. Yeah. And I want to say, sorry, let me read that. So not clicking in, but playing what was recorded before, and then recording where your selection is. So this should record in as soon as you select the punch. And the answer to the destructive question, I'm going to say it is non-destructive. Pretty much everything that I've seen so far has been non-destructive recording. So yeah, so this auto punch, I mean, I guess the other thing you could do is you could just loop it as you want to. Let's say I want to punch from here to here, and I want to give some extra time, you could just play back. Hey, we're going to do it, going to start again, and then we're going to stop. Yeah, so you could do it back from the part that you want, and it's going to loop this time every time, and you just tell the person, hey, yeah, or starting, they're going to hear the real thing until it comes time for this section. Of course, obviously, I need to mute these other guys. And you can change the function for the zoom, etc., however you want to. I have control and mouse wheel to go in and out on whatever track is under the mouse, and it does all of the tracks. There's a way you can do only the track itself, and you can pretty much search anything that you want to in this shift question mark. You can search anything that you want, and you'll probably find it there. Zoom center to track, and you just assign whatever key combination that you want to it. So that's super useful. But anyway, I would just say, hey, we're gonna start from here. You're gonna hear this up until here, and then it's gonna you're not gonna hear the original track. and then it's going to record that. So basically, once I hit actual record, you're going to hear this. Hey, we're going to do it again, and then we're going to stop. Yeah, so you notice that you could hear it at the beginning, and then once this came in, it went silent, and that would be the part where I'm supposed to be performing, essentially. So is there a do you guys use destructive editing purposely for anything? Error, try again. No, sir. I will not try again. All right, Alex, you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, so let's see. Workaround seems to be the quickest way to do it. Simply record on another track and then combine them later. Yeah. I would, I guess as far as the destructive editing thing goes, I would just record it another take on the same track, and then combine it and export it, rather than just doing destructive, because you always have it there in the background, and you can always delete a portion of it if you really want to. I don't know why that last message didn't go through. So is there anything else that comes to mind? I guess just roughly. This was a good test run for this.
I honestly will probably run into questions as I try and do things, to be completely honest.
That's fair.
I haven't really spent as much time as I would like so far trying to record. I'm sure there will be like small things that come up just as I'm going through the process. I guess any like slick hotkeys, things that you find that you use all the time that you're like, man, I need to put this on a hotkey, and then like maybe any suggestions that you do when you have your, did you edit your template to kind of suit your workflow a little bit better?
Yeah, so I would I would look up the videos that I think it's like Reaper Mania and the Reaper blog or something like that. But I'm always looking at those. But there's a few recently that I thought were pretty useful, as far as, and I guess if we didn't hear the question on here, then it was basically like, what are some kind of shortcuts or different things that are useful to put in there? One is these buttons up here. You can basically edit this toolbar and use these. You can use these action shortcuts to basically have one of these buttons do pretty much anything you want. And what I was showing earlier was I have this button basically to just add a high pass EQ to whatever I have selected. So that way I can just select a ton of tracks, because I'm putting it on pretty much everything except for, the bass and the bass drum and like a tom or something like that. So I want to be able to just select a bunch of stuff and just add it. So that feature is pretty useful. Also for me, just changing the zoom and the scroll features are useful for me. So I have like shift and scroll up or down to go horizontally. I have Control Alt to go up or down vertically, and this regular mouse wheel is very convenient for me. I know some people probably don't like that, but I've gotten used to it. And when I go into another program and it's not there, I'm upset. So I keep that the same. And also this mouse, the zoom goes to the mouse cursor rather than where the edit cursor is for me. So I can always zoom in on a particular part and zoom out. And the only thing you have to keep track of is, depending on what side of the screen you're on when you zoom, it's gonna kind of like it's gonna favor that side of the screen that way. So you might actually not get to where you want to go if your mouse is on the wrong side of the screen and you're zooming in. So now see, now I've zoomed in, it's like taking me way far to the right. So I'm going to zoom back out and make sure my mouse is over here before I zoom in. So once I got the hang of that, then that's good for me. And the other thing is that cut thing for me is having a button on the keyboard to just cut under the mouse. Where am I at? Yeah, having. Oh, okay.
But I mean, if you have anything else, I don't want to cut you off.
No, that's. I mean, I think that's most of it. I think it's like whatever you think of, you look through this menu again, the shift question mark, and search whatever you want and figure out, okay, what key or what mouse combination or whatever, just literally just search it. And using the search in the preferences is useful as well. If you want to find a particular option or something like that, then you can always just go into here and just search mouse and then just keep hitting find, and you're probably going to find whatever. So this vertical zoom center, track under mouse cursor, and horizontal zoom center and mouse cursor. I think the default is edit cursor, which is fine, but I just like being able to have the mouse be the center point for whatever I do, which is why I chose to put a key combination on the cut feature, so that I could just go through and say, yeah, I want to just slice this real quick, and I can make I can make some very quick edits and cuts on there. And I think one more quick thing is the question about the transients. Is there is a way to go in here and view the transients and add the transients. And again, if I'm not sure of what this is, let's say I go to this stem here. If I'm not sure of what this is, then I go to that menu again and transient. And marker. Add stretch marker at cursor, or add stretch marker at mouse position. So Shift W and Alt W, those may not be the default, I can't remember. But once you go there, I will use these a lot to do I'll use these a lot to do and Alt W was it? Yeah, so I'll use Alt W a lot to say, hey, I want this stretch marker here, I want this here, I want that one here, that here for some extra space, this here for some space there, and then just go in and drag away to my heart's content to line up with the other things. You can do this in the snapping functions if you have a bunch of different stuff going on. You can snap to other transients and other tracks and various things like that. So you can kind of scoot things over. Gonna do it. Starting again. Pretty much however you want to. And again, that quick add thing is very useful for me personally. Again. And again. And then they also have an auto detection feature where it will, you can look at the exact spots and it'll just throw in a bunch of transients automatically. And then you can edit those, not throw in the transients, throw in the markers, and you can edit the positions just like you do here. And one other useful thing before I get back to the last question is this gain, basically kind of like a gain staging situation. And again, I'm going to just hit C here real quick. And now I can isolate this. And this thing is in the middle to increase or decrease the gain on the actual waveform. And that setting is different when you first start out. And is it volume? There's some setting that lets you choose for this gain fader to be in the top of the track or in the middle. And I want to say item volume control. Yeah, it's right here. So where is this? Media item appearance. So appearance and media. Item volume control, the handle at the center of the item versus the top of the item. I think the top is the default, and then there's another one that lets you have a knob, and the knob will show up right in the corner of each clip that you have. So I think I like it at the center, so that for each one of these I can go through, and if there's a certain part that was not loud enough, we're gonna do it. Starting again. If there's a part that was not loud enough, then I can go through and just, again, I'm hitting C real quick. I click this and drag it up, and now this volume is louder. And if I wanted to match that to other particular things, you can go through and kind of gain stage each thing very, very quickly, or if something's like too loud or something like that. And yeah, it's just very quick in my mind doing it that way. All right, so come back over one more time. All right, so working on a section but had a hiccup with the section, rather than have a separate file for the edits, I would just pick up the edits in a quick spot and keep running on the same file ID. Thus, it saved me rendering or comping, and it left my file management cleaner.
So basically, I think the intent is continued recording capability. So if say you're running a take and then something stops or they have a problem, you're like, okay, let's go to a quiet area in the track, like a lull and a breath.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, I'm going to keep recording. In Pro Tools, I think it would just pick up that file ID and then keep going to the end, like it wasn't a new take. It would just keep going from there.
Yeah, I'm not personally familiar with that. I would I haven't seen it. I would think that they do allow for that, but I just haven't physically used that.
Nah, it's fine. I mean,
So that's the
like,
answer.
there are a couple nuances between every DAW that, you're like, man, I wish they had this feature in this other one.
Mm-hmm.
But there are definitely a couple gems in Reaper that are just insane that we've seen.
Yeah. It's the deeper I get into it, the harder it feels when I go to something else. It's like, oh, I can't do that, or I can't customize that. And I'm like, I'm on the surface myself with all that I know, like hardly doing anything. So.
I mean, you're mixing all this stuff for Bands of Us, right? Or you're recording all this stuff at your place?
Not all the stuff. Some of the I'm doing some editing. We've done the recordings that we have out. We tracked at a studio, and then came back and did some comping. I did some comping myself, and maybe like some like demo recording, like kind of like a full mix of what it should sound like before we send it off to someone else. And I've been using Reaper for pretty much all of that. And any like overdubbing that we need to do, like at the house, sometimes I'll bring it in here and overdub it, and then be able to export, export out.
You got any file management kind of tips and tricks and that kind of thing that work for you?
There's a video that I saw recently on that file management thing that allows you to I guess definitely right now I'm making sure that when I save the project, I'm making sure that this saves. I create the subdirectory for the project and move all media into the project directory. I make sure I have those clicked. So basically, everything's going to be in one place, because if you have whatever the default area is, I ended up with a bunch of tracks that were like track O1 and track O one or something like that in a big folder. And
Yeah, yeah.
you know, it's obviously when you load the project, it's going to pull the right ones. But it's if you ever trying to go back and get to it, it's just like a big massive folder that personally I prefer to have it somewhere else. And also recently I've been using this cloud OneDrive account to actually just save my projects there. And if I'm somewhere else on my laptop or anything, I can just literally go and load up the same project because all the files are there. So that's another thing that has been kind of useful for me recently.
You know about the render queue, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. That one is a time saver.
yeah,
Oh, you were doing the stuff. You save as version, right? When you're like, okay, I'm gonna do another version, or like as you're recording, right?
yeah. Recently, I've been doing the project saving, and then so let's say what do we call this comping test or something. So that's here, almost for the sake of timekeeping as well. I will say anytime I get to a new part or a new thing that I'm doing, I will go back and say comping test O1 and then describe what's happening. Um, Maybe it's drum drum comp or something like that. And then the next time I'll save O2. And I know some people don't like to have all of that, have to deal with all of that. But for me, when I look back at it, I can see, okay, I saved it. I started this portion at this time and then I saved it again at this time. And then I can kind of know for sure how long this took me. Or when I go back and look at it, I can know, okay, I have these like 20 different things and I can go back to the specific spot because sometimes something might get messed up, and then I could go back and you can actually right click this top area and do new project tab, and you can drag things over from one project to another or export or do different stuff. So I was able to load up, you know, an old file that had gotten messed up, like the comping take had gotten messed up, and I was able to go back to an old one and re-export that and then just load them into my main project. So for me personally, it's nice to be able to go back and just see all those different ones, and also I can look at the date and time. Whoops. I can look at the date and time that it was modified and be able to kind of know, okay, this is what I did and for how long and when. So let me see if I understand this last part. Yeah, so he answered the question basically.
Well, I personally am way ignorant, so I will probably have questions at a later date.
Yeah, no problem.
Good. I appreciate you taking the time to kind of give us your tips and tricks and some of your workflow things and answer some of those questions.
Yeah, no.
Definitely.
Yeah, no problem.